I think we'll get started now. Thank you to everyone that's joined us for today's network monitoring webinar. My name's Helen Carroll, VP of Marketing. I'm joined today by two new presenters for you. We've got Scott Hayhoe, who's our VP of Product Management, and we've got Brent, who's our Senior Sales Engineer. So you're in very good hands this afternoon. As always, please can you ask your questions via the chat. We've got quite a few people on the line, so we don't want to ruin the audio quality. And if you can keep yourselves on mute, that would be much appreciated. We are recording today's session, and we will send that out to you after, so long as there's a valid business email address. You will see some screenshots today that may look slightly unfamiliar. That's because Brent is running on the latest version of Opsview. So if you're running a version that's older than 6.3, I'd encourage you to upgrade. So thank you for joining today, and it's over to Scott. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Helen. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this educational and I hope entertaining session. You all know Opsview very well for cloud and infrastructure monitoring. So what I wanted to do today was share something a little bit different. So Brent and I will be taking you through network monitoring with Opsview. I guess the first question that you might have is, well, why now? Like most companies, we at Opsview, we're all working from home, getting used to this new way of working, and certainly for the first 2 or 3 weeks of this new style of working, I guess we tried every collaboration, video conferencing app we could lay our hands on: Zoom, Teams, Slack, and so on and so forth, and had all of the highs and lows of that, with bandwidth being maxed out and all of the in-office traffic suddenly becoming out-of-office traffic. And it was probably somewhat ironic that yesterday, as I was preparing for this webinar, my Wi-Fi card decided to stop working. So yeah, here I am connected by an Ethernet cable to my router, which sits on a high bookcase in my room here. So just bringing that to life a little bit. So yeah, why now? Well, it's probably been no better time than now to have a look at network monitoring with Opsview. So maybe Brent, you could get us all onto the same page to start with, please.
Okay, Scott. Actually, did you want to talk about this next slide, and I'll jump into some of the screens and start to show Opsview?
Yeah, sure. That's a good idea, actually. Let's do it that way around. Yeah, what we want to talk about today, a few different things. For those of you, whether you have Opsview Monitor or Opsview Cloud, you already have the capability to do SNMP monitoring out of the box. So we'll have a little look at that, because we know that some of you use it and some of you are yet to use it. Some of you also have the Network Analyzer module, and there are 2 parts to that, which Brent will show you in some detail around having a look inside applications and the actual network flow to see what's happening to that bandwidth that you're now stressing, and also configuration snapshots of your network environment. And never standing still, we've just released an Opspack for monitoring Cisco ACI, which is software-defined networking. So that's really at the front end of networking capabilities and monitoring. So we'll step through each of these. So yeah, good setup slide there. I'd forgotten that one was coming next, Brent. So thanks for sending that one back to me. Now I think it's your turn.
Okay, thanks, Scott. Hi, everyone. Happy to be here today to talk to you a little bit about Opsview and what we can do in relation to network monitoring. But I thought I'd start out here at kind of a higher level, and this is really the strength of Opsview, not just network monitoring, not just server monitoring, but cloud, containers, applications, all coming together in a holistic view like this. So at a glance, you can see from top to bottom, how is your infrastructure performing? That goes a step further in some of our dashboards that we can create. So a look at an IT operations dashboard. This shows things like WAN throughput graph. So you can see some peaks and valleys there. You can compare that against your BSM summary. So our business service monitoring gives you the ability to vertically arrange your infrastructure in what is the business service, what's the application, what's the logical service that infrastructure is providing. No server or network device resides on your network, in your data center, on your estate, for any reason other than providing a service. You know, kind of an ITIL fundamental, but very much underscored here, where you can see, you know, green is good, red is bad, and levels of drill down. So you compare that with Windows monitoring, with Linux monitoring, with network monitoring, all put together in that same screen. You can quickly pivot back and forth and do some analysis here. The real theme of Opsview is to bring it all together, give you that single pane of glass where you can make those determinations of, you know, what might be impacted, what's important, what's actionable now. So kind of speaking to that and relating to Scott's comments about COVID, I kind of call this our COVID graph here, that you can see we use Unify wireless devices, access points in our office, main office, and you can see right about mid-March, traffic or, you know, connected clients drops off dramatically. That's because we closed our office and moved to working at home. External VPN traffic picked up. Not everybody in our organization needs to connect into the VPN, but, you know, certainly our developers and application folks need to do that. So you can see the traffic picked up pretty significantly over that. So kind of an interesting comparison, one dropping off and one picking up, related to a real life change that the office has been closed since that time. So kind of that's a starting point. We'll start to drill down a little bit further into some of the technologies, and I'll pass back to you, Scott, with SNMP to start us out.
Great, thanks. So yeah, simple network management protocol. This is something that's available out of the box with Opsview Monitor and Opsview Cloud. So the ability to monitor using the SNMP protocol. The sort of devices that you're all familiar with, routers or routers, servers, printers, all of those great things. And we have plenty of customers that, you know, manage large campuses and have lots of these devices distributed across those campuses, and so they monitor those. We have at least one customer that I was lucky enough to visit that has an IoT, an Internet of Things showcase laboratory, and they monitor many of their IoT devices in that lab using SNMP. So out of the box, you've got this availability to add your own SNMP monitoring of devices, with the real benefit of not needing to write any code or access the command line, and all of the things that you might expect from SNMP, like SNMP walk, polling, traps, and alerts. They're available. Again, if you have Opsview Cloud, Opsview Monitor, you've got this already, so definitely worth taking a look at.
So as we start to look a little bit more at the utilities and you know, how we can bring those to bear for SNMP monitoring, you can see here from our configuration page on service checks, we would actually be able to configure that SNMP trap, giving you the ability to monitor things such as discards, errors, interfaces. Is the agent running? What's the uptime to that? So anything along those lines, you should be able to configure very extensible. You know, Opsview is an independent software company, heterogeneous monitoring, so it doesn't matter if your vendors are Cisco or Ubiquiti or you know, whoever in there. Opsview has the ability to monitor those devices. We can also import MIBs. So for cloud, Opsview Cloud customers, the MIB file would be a ticket that you would open up. We would install that into your Opsview orchestrator. For 6.3 on-premise customer, there's a directory. You would just store those MIB files in, and they would be available for your use in setting up new monitors. Here's an example of that SNMP trap with the example macros, the different rules there. You can use any of the bar binds. There's some variables that we've used there for on the message, all data from trap name, and then a dump of all the data associated with that trap. So it's pretty simple. It's all menu-driven, GUI-based, and can walk you right through setting up those monitors as well. As Scott mentioned, SNMP Walk is also included. Here's an example of scanning a Cisco device and bringing back the different attributes that may be monitored with the OID that's pre-populated there for you. You can adjust your calculate rate and set the label accordingly. So lots of options for you there. And then to visualize some of that, when you set up a number of those, you want to keep track of how those SNMP trap systems are working, how many traps are out there, how many service checks, any exceptions that are out there as well. So it gives you that ability to see from a high level how is your SNMP polling working.
Thanks, Brent. Second thing we wanted to cover today comes in two parts. The network analyzer has functionality in one place called the flow collector and something else we'll have a look at in a moment called Net Audit. Now, flow collector is great for having a look at, as it says, the net flow from Cisco devices, S-flow from HP devices, JFlow support. This allows you to have a look and really pinpoint applications, users that are gobbling up lots of bandwidth, for example, across your network. And remember that that chart that that Brent showed us, where all of our traffic moved from in-office to out of office. These are the kind of things that different scenarios that are starting to happen. We had a bit of a scare yesterday, actually working on this exact presentation, that Office 365 suddenly started to have a bit of a problem. Now, luckily, of course, it's stored and all of the updates and then forwarded them a little bit later on. But we had a scary moment where we lost a connection through the application there. But again, you can have a look at all of this traffic and, as you would expect, take a look at it on some of the dashboards inside Opsview.
So NetFlow, setting that up is pretty straightforward. Again, another menu-driven wizard to set up. You pick that collector that you want to designate to pull that up, and that can be any one of your collectors. And I would encourage you to take advantage of distributing those in your environment as it makes sense to your application. So if the application front end is in one section of your network, put a collector there. Gives you that kind of perspective from that application area. NetFlow, S-Flow, however you want to set that up. If you want to override the IP address, some options for you there. And then when you visualize that, it comes back as the different graphs that we can portray. Host transmitters, top 10 port receivers. There's about a dozen of these different dashboard portlets or dashlets that you can employ. Nice to see it kind of side by side there, but where it really starts to get interesting is when you portray that against other data. So some sort of a BSM view above, some CPU graphing, those same connected clients as well. So you can mix and match and create a dashboard customized for your individual internal or external customer and how they want to see that. As you know, Opsview is role-based and context sensitive. So if you log in as my user, you see a whole lot of tabs here, but that could be certainly segmented down to the individual customer, the individual server, and the service check on that server, all the way down to just a single check. Or anything in between. So lots of flexibility there. Active Directory and LDAP integrated, so ease of use is definitely thought of as using the tool.
So the second part of network analyzer, so the flow monitoring that we just had a look at is one part. The other part is Net Audit, and I guess this is brought to life. I was reading an article actually where there was I think somebody had a small fire in a server room and was struggling to bring that configuration back up again. So what Net Audit allows you to do is take a backup of your network configuration, have a look at it. Have a look at it side by side, as we'll see in a moment. And by this time, you're not looking just at the performance of the device, but also the actual configuration. And you can set alerts so that when anything changes, maybe another member of your team makes a change, for example, you can get an alert for that. So this is all about taking that snapshot and recovering or comparing configurations.
So as you look at Net Audit as it's in the Opsview tool, again, you can certainly get to this configuration information by logging on the switch SSH, run some commands and get the configuration. But much easier, much better, and faster to, just in context of the tool, within a couple menu clicks, you're at the configuration. So you can see, what is that value? What was that configuration that we put out on that device? What's more is there's a button to compare with previous. If we click that, we see that there is actually some changes that occurred. So some timestamps to it, and you can see what changed, potentially who changed it. Certainly everybody should be using unique logins. And that kind of eliminates that problem. We all know that network problems are usually happen in the middle of the night with a network administrator trying to fix a routing table, and chaos ensues from there. This is a quick way that you can make that comparison and say, there is something that's happened in the environment. Is it related to a change? You can quickly validate that change by comparing the two configurations as well. So a very useful tool, and really eliminating that mean time to repair, or reducing it at least.
Thanks, Brent. So we've had a look at SNMP monitoring, which is an out-of-the-box capability, as I've mentioned, and then Network Analyzer with the flow monitoring and Net Audit, which is an additional module for Opsview Cloud and Opsview Monitor. I wanted to just touch on Opspacks. As you know, Opspacks are the way in which we make sure that we've got great breadth and depth of monitoring available to you. There's a couple of things I really like about my job. The first is scanning the market, having a look at technology trends and drivers, really seeing what's happening out there. Really bringing those sort of requirements back into the business to so that we can start building things like Opspacks to go and monitor that emerging technology. Now, Cisco, they seem to be in the news a lot more recently now that, of course, their hardware and some of the hardware underneath ACI application-centric infrastructure and something else we'll talk about in a moment have been around a long time. The actual, the hardware, the tin that gets monitored. But what they've done is they've put a software-defined layer on top of this, and so ACI is Cisco's advance in software-defined networking, and this is a real trend that I'm sure you're all seeing as well. So a journey many of you have been on with us, from monitoring hardware to private cloud, virtual machines, public cloud, containers. So you'll see all of that. Software-defined infrastructure networking is definitely the sort of crest of a wave here at the moment. So the other great part of my job is getting out and meeting customers and talking to each of you and really trying to understand, again, what are your needs and where can we add value to what you're doing in your IT estate. So quite a few people were asking for ACI monitoring. So we just in April 2020 released a new Opspack for monitoring Cisco ACI, and you can read the list for yourself. There's pods and nodes, so you can do custom monitoring, and there's lots around clusters, for example. Now this is available for Opsview cloud users. Of course, every time we release something, it becomes available to you in the cloud. If you want, and you have Cisco ACI in your environment and you want to start monitoring that, you will need to move on to Opsview Monitor 6.3, which I think Helen mentioned at the beginning as well. So this is really interesting. So Brent, have you got a few more details on this, please?
Yeah, thanks, Scott. So taking a look a little bit deeper at the ACI Opspack, and Opspacks in general, that's really a value is that you don't necessarily have to be an ACI expert to monitor ACI. Relatively new technology, definitely things move fast in the IT infrastructure world, and the ability to have these Opspacks kind of shrink wrap knowledge, that you can use those for monitoring these new bits of infrastructure as they come your way. The other nice thing, a lot of companies will have this, other monitoring companies will have, their management packs or smart plugins at a significant cost. This is all included. You're free to use these as long as you have the versions that Scott had mentioned with Opsview Orchestrator. You're free to use these. So very network administrator or monitoring administrator friendly. there's no sense in having these technologies available if you can't use those. If your company has not procured those, you're not able to use that new technology. So I really like that about what we're doing at Opsview. So here you can see some of that shrink wrap knowledge is CPU utilization. It shows a description of that, the default thresholds. And hopefully that's an 80-20. Hopefully we've got in the ballpark of the thresholds that you're going to want to see, and you can change that. Maybe it's 75 and 95 that you want to see there for your thresholds, but it should be a fairly trivial matter to adjust those and get those to the states that you want. How to store the credentials, how to make the service check, what the protocol is to access the device, that's all thought out and given to you there. So here you see a bit of the host templates as they're loaded onto your orchestrator. You can use those as many or as little as you want, as I said, with your host-based licensing. When you see that running on your system, here's the navigator view showing the status of the Cisco ACI environment, the different metrics and their states as well. Certainly drill downs and ability to triage that. If you notice the graph, as you know, that brings up another level of information about it. So we see that we're looking at disk usage, all disks in investigate mode. This information is presented here. It's drill down a day, a week, a month, a year. You can slice and dice that how you need. You can get down to just a couple of hours worth of data as well. If you notice the little down arrow, that's quite useful as well. It's nice to be able to pull this up kind of ad hoc, but if you wanted to save that off into some other sort of format, you can save it as a JPEG, you can save it as a PDF, it can be just the data behind those graphs. It could be a CSV chart, chart as well. And we can also copy that to a dashboard view. So if you wanted to present that in some sort of higher level format, if you particularly like that graph, and that's actually how I came up with that COVID graph, is I was comparing, the drop-off in connected clients in the office. I said, that'd be interesting if I saw, what's happening on VPN. So I was able to copy that into a dashboard, and then you can add these other dashlets to it as well. So very useful, putting information at the fingertips of people who need to see that when they need to see it.
Great, thanks, thanks, Brent. So we've had a quick fly through and a good look in a couple of places inside Opsview. So again, just to recap, SNMP monitoring, that's available out of the box. The network analyzer is an add-on module, and as Brent said, the ACI Opspack is available to everybody if you're on Monitor 6.3 or on Opsview Cloud. Now, that's a lot of information. There's a lot of information, of course, that you can capture with Opsview, and practically everything that we've had a look at so far is real time. And we do get questions quite often about, well, that's great, that's perfect for the people in the operations centres. What about static reporting, something that gives us a bit of a summary that perhaps we can share with senior management?
Yeah, good point, Scott. So Opsview is also bundled with a full reporting module. So you can create these PDF reports that give you availability, service level, events along those lines. And there's a fine line in between an event and a report. Not everything is actionable. Sometimes you just want to capture it and look at the trends. Here you can see we're doing pretty well. Things are available and up and running. The discards, the SNMP traps, could be any metric. It could be really anything here. But this does also another thing. If it's not just a trend or analysis, it's good PR. So you're working hard, keeping your monitoring platform up and running, detecting events, and avoiding outages. But this is something that can be scheduled out as well. and give you the ability to kind of promote the great job that the tool is doing and the infrastructure is doing. You know, you're providing some great uptime and availability. So this is good advertising. People will be drawn back. And that's to say with the reports over time, as well as the dashboards, as well as you know, the graphs and gauges and things that we give you, it really gets people thinking more about service availability, and you know, the monitoring tool is playing its role in that.
Great, thanks. So that's functionality that's available to you all already. Just wanted to open the box a little bit on some things coming your way, depending on whether you're listening to us live today or whether you're catching up. So again, we do hear a lot about Cisco, and again, working with some customers here. Just trying to decide, well, you know, where do we go next with all of this? And because I think we do hear a lot about Cisco, and because we hear a lot more about UCS, in particular, Unified Computing System, this is really, this is a product line that Cisco have had as hardware for quite a while for their data center servers. But again, have put a software-defined layer on top of that to help define the infrastructure. Now, these things together, you know, essentially to sort of paraphrase, you throw your application at ACI or UCS, and the software-defined part figures out what do you need for your network and for your infrastructure. As Brent mentioned, he uses this phrase, shrink-wrapped knowledge, and this is a key part of what we do. So, you know, whilst my role is very much having a look at the market, talking to customers, really understanding where we should go next, we have a team that really gets into the detail around Opspacks, and you know, sometimes we look at this technology and there are, you know, hundreds, maybe even more service checks that could be done. But part of the value add here is the team will really take a look at what's valuable. And so this Opspack is very comprehensive. You can monitor blade, chassis, fabric, rack. I think there's 60 or 70 service checks included already. As I say, this is early availability. This is being shipped to first customer on June the 1st, or 2020, depending on when you're listening to all of this. And so if you want to get involved in the early availability program, please do get in touch. This is a way in which we make functionality available to people. But let's have a little look at UCS in a bit more detail.
So UCS, as Scott mentioned, is newly released. It gives you that ability to look into that infrastructure and not necessarily be an expert on that. We do take Opspacks quite serious at Opsview. So we'd want to work with you if there's some sort of standard technology that is prevalent in the market space. Somebody like Cisco releases a major product line that we don't have coverage. Please let us know. Communicate back to us. Scott and his team, Opspack development side, there's dedicated teams to make sure that we have good coverage there. And also, if you have customized applications in your environment that you don't yet have coverage for, we can actually rent out some of our Opspack team. And these guys are very good. If you've got a well-documented API, if you've got an expert that understands that can portray what those values should be, within usually half a day, you can have a new Opspack created for you, kind of like teaching you to fish. You know, once the first one has been created, you're probably going to be able to create the second one a lot easier. But we're happy to help in any way we can with Opspack development.
So just wrapping up, we had a look at SNMP, Network Analyzer, Cisco ACI, and Cisco UCS. I can see a pile of questions coming in as well. I don't know if you can all see the chat flashing up on the screen. We'll get to some of those questions in a moment. But just sort of wrapping all of this up, some things to think about. Single pane of glass. So whether you're adding SNMP or whether you're adding flow monitoring, or you're just adding in the ACI or UCS Opspacks. Key advantage here is bringing everything underneath that single pane of glass, physical virtual cloud network infrastructures. Secondly, there are some great dashboards available that have their place in your operations centers. Again, I love visiting customers and having a look in the operations center and seeing all of the charts up on the great big monitors there with people taking a look at how the systems are performing. I like it even better when I go to a Brave customer who's got some of those charts up in their reception areas where their customers are coming in and they want to show what good state their IT infrastructure is in, as well as those static reports as well for senior managers. That's another way of sharing this information and sharing really the good work that you're doing. The other thing where we do get pulled in from time to time as well is where you might have an existing network monitoring tool that you want to swap out and bring that network monitoring within Opsview as well. So just a few different things to sort of think about to bring those different streams together. If you want to find out a little bit more, I can see we've got some questions coming in, so we'll got some time left to answer some of those. Under your own steam, if you want to have find out some more as well already, the network monitoring page on the website's been updated. That looks great. You'll find much more there about UCI and UCS and ACI. You'll get a little video there that Brent has created, which will cover some of the points that we've covered today in a condensed format. I think 3 or 4 minutes there. There's a network monitoring solution sheet which provides some of the detailed description behind that. But I think we'll stop there, and I can see some questions have been coming in on the chat channel. So I'm going to pause there and hand back to Helen.
Hey, thanks, Scott and Brent, for that great session. Really informative. Yes, we'll go through those questions. Just a couple of posts are coming through, not related to network monitoring, but relating to your ability to receive the Opsview emails. It seems a few people haven't received the recordings that we've been sending you. I think that's mainly due to your spam filters at your end. If you want to send me an email, I'm helen.carroll@opsview.com, and I've just posted that email address in the chat facility. Send me in the email, either from your private email address or your work one, and we'll be able to send you those recordings back on a one-to-one basis. Let's get started with those questions. Brent, Scott, are you guys ready?
Absolutely.
Sure.
I think the first one is for Brent. Where do we configure S-Flow, J-Flow in Opsview?
Yeah, so there should be under your configuration tab, so in version 6 under configuration, there should be a NetFlow configuration section. If for some reason that is not there, you probably want to go over to My System and look at your licensing and make sure that the NetFlow component is enabled and running. Could be some licensing, could be a couple of factors in there if you're not seeing that, but should be pretty straightforward to get to the screen that I showed in the demonstration for NetFlow, JFlow, SFlow.
Thanks, Brent. Next question was, can we monitor BGP in Opsview? And I think, Paul, thank you very much for answering that question for us. We'll move on to the next one. Brent, another one for you. Is there a possibility...
Was the answer to that yes or no?
The answer was yes, and Paul very kindly posted in the chat facility how to do that as well. So
okay, so that was somebody asking the question, then somebody else answering it for us. Fantastic. Yeah, I like this. I like this. Brilliant.
Scott, sorry, not Scott, Brent, is there a possibility to clone all the interfaces used with SNMP, or do we have to add them manually when cloning a host?
Well, I'm not so sure about cloning, but what Opsview does under SNMP polling is it actually discovers the interfaces. So if you scroll down, I think there's an advanced button that you look at, and it brings up all the interfaces. From there, you can set, do I want to monitor this interface, yes or no? If it's a serial or some kind of a console interface, you might not want to monitor that. And then you can also set the thresholds for whatever metrics. Is it just throughput? Is it errors? Is it discards? And what are those levels I want to set? So it makes it as easy as possible to pick the interfaces that you want, There's no manual configuration to it other than just setting your values and saying yes or no to it.
Fab, thanks, Brent. Scott, I think this one is for you. It's come through to me privately, but I'll let you answer this one. I'm on version 5.4.2. I'm on the website and I can't see how to access ACI Opspack.
5.4.2, okay. So the answer to that is that the ACI Opspack, I think as I mentioned a little bit earlier on, as we are developing Opspacks and additional functionality, actually, Opsview Cloud customers get that functionality available as soon as we release it. So every 2 weeks we're releasing something a little bit better every time. And we completed the ACI Opspack in April. Now, because I wanted to pull together everything that we can do around network monitoring, so SNMP and network analyzer, and I also wanted to make this ACI Opspack available to monitor customers. We have made an exception and made the ACI Opspack available to monitor version 6.3 customers. So if you want to have access to that, you will need to move on to 6.3. I think if you've been sort of looking at other things on our website and marketing communications, you'll see that we do offer a migration service to move you on to 6.3. And one thing we've been doing in these new times is offering that as a weekend service. For those of us that remember how different a weekend is to the week, it all seems to blur in. But if you have particular periods during the week when it makes sense for you to move from 5.4.2, I think you mentioned, to 6.3, that's something we can help with. I think actually version 5.4.2 is probably unsupported now, actually, I think. So I would definitely recommend getting onto 6.3 or cloud.
Great, thank you, Scott. Next question is for Brent. Brent, when a router goes down, we currently get alerts for all the host interfaces. Is it possible to get just one alert for the node down instead of 20-ish alerts for the same router?
Yeah, I would probably say look at parent-child relationships. So we have the ability to set, if this check has failed, suppress the remainder. I just have to look at how you've got that set up, but I think that your answer is setting that parent-child relationship to say if one goes down, don't flood me with those 20 other alerts coming in.
Okay, and then a follow-on question. Can you tell us how to access the tool that checks the router configuration changes?
That should be Net Audit. If you look inside the tool on the configuration side, on Net Audit, there should be the ability to set up the devices that you want to monitor with some profiles around that. It is based on the open source tool Rancid, but we call that in kind of an embedded solution of Net Audit, and you should be able to find that on your configuration side. Some variances there might be on the on-premise version. Everything's included in Opsview Cloud, so one price gets it all. But on the on-premise versions, there is an additional network analyzer module that you would need to add on to get the NetFlow monitoring and the Net Audit function. So you might want to look at your licensing as well and make sure that you're licensed for it.
So Brent, just to clarify, so Net Audit is in Network Analyzer and it's an add-on to your normal license?
Correct. The Network Analyzer is an add-on module to your base Opsview host-based licensing.
Okay, thank you. Apologies to Nick, I've missed your question. Let me go back to this one. This is for Brent. Is there any functionality akin to weather maps to build a network topology based on monitored nodes and interfaces?
Yeah, we do have a network topology dashlet that you can employ. What we don't do is give you that like layer 2, layer 3 discovery. So what we would use, some other kind of source of configuration. If you've got a CMDB, if you've got some sort of discovery tool that's out there, we can integrate with that, and we can create those relationships between server to switch, switch to router. Those sorts of things could be integrated in and then displayed, but we don't offer the functionality to go out and discover those relationships in between devices. That would be kind of a point solution tool, specialized tool that you may already have in your organization, and that's where Opsview really starts to shine, is when you integrate to other data sources and bring it all together. Your end customers can then view one source for all information, and then certainly levels of drill down if you wanted to go out and investigate or triage or go from there. But it's all about that kind of workflow, that resolution workflow of tell me at a high level what happened, what the importance is to the organization, and then drill down to a specific element management tool or the actual device, and let me fix it from there. But you really drive out a lot of the cost associated with outages and increase the mean time to repair by doing that sort of thing.
Great, thanks, Brent. We've got 2 minutes to go, and there's 2 more questions. How do we monitor BGP in Opsview? So apologies, I don't think we've answered that fully. So Brent, how do we monitor BGP in Opsview?
Well, I think from what the other customer said, through SNMP, if any attribute is available through SNMP, if there's a value to that in BGP, we don't necessarily have any protocol level monitors for BGP, but through SNMP, through any other means, we could get to that. And that really goes to just about anything on your network infrastructure. If there's an API, if there's a programmatic way to get to that through Perl or through Python, ideally a Python script, you can use that as a genesis for a service check. So if there's any method, any tool or utility that already exists out there, use that. That would be my advice, is let's take that and use that for monitoring, and kind of you can drill down from there. So hopefully that answers it. Certainly you can open up a support ticket. You can access our Slack channel, community Slack channel for support. If these responses have not answered it for you, please follow up with us, and we can go into details about your specific requirements.
Thanks, Brent. One last question we can squeeze in. Do you also support other protocols, for example, CDP and LLDP? No, we don't really address the higher level networking protocols. I think that's maybe a future roadmap item we're looking at. Scott, do you have any insight into anything we might be doing along those lines?
Yeah, not in detail at this point in time. I think what's maybe one thing just to offer out to everybody is that an important part of my role is really understanding how much of a demand for this this type of monitoring there is. Certainly we can invest more into this area, and I know that I have in-depth conversations with quite a few of you. Please do open up a dialogue with me in product management if we don't have one already. Love to hear where it is you're going, what we should be investing in next in order to help you. I think I was asking a question myself actually on the channel about, because I know we've been running some training sessions as well, some free training sessions that we've had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people dialing in and listening to Neil Colley deliver some wonderful tips and tricks. So I was asking Helen actually, are we going to be having some tips and tricks training on network monitoring? And Helen's kindly answered and said yes during the summer. So asked and answered our own question there. They are wildly popular, aren't they, those training sessions, Helen?
They sure are, and next week we'll be publishing June's webinars, and then watch the space for the summer webinars. Scott, I've just posted your email into the chat facility, so if there are any customers that have got specific product requirements, then please reach out to Scott. His email address is there. I think we are now out of time, and actually we're 2 minutes over. So thank you so much, Scott and Brent, for today's session. Thank you to everyone for joining us. We will be posting out the recording to everyone very shortly. Thank you and have a good day.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.